The give was to Ashcroft. The goals are close enough now. Ashcroft winding up and reminding everyone why he's already won one, Norm, and who knows how many more he'll get. Fletcher creeping close enough. There's a whistle here.
Good finish.
He's finished it anyway. Brushed the kick, wanted to use the extra number they had to maximise their chance. Eventually Berry couldn't have been more settled, and he's deadly accurate to finish off the play. Next off the line was Zorko. Ashcroft has a good look. Oh no! That is incredible! Simply brilliant. Simply Will Ashcroft.
It's JB and Patrick back for the Brisbane Lions Fancast. All thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. Round 4 is done and dusted, and the Lions find themselves in the top 4, boasting a 4-0 record after, it must be said, an underwhelming performance against Richmond, but a victory nonetheless. We will go through the game as we like to do each and every week, and pick out a few moments, a few quarters, a few last 5 minutes of quarters that I'm sure we'll try and analyse as best that we can. But we are sitting pretty. It's fair to say that we have not nearly played anywhere near our best football, aside from maybe a couple of quarters against Geelong. But we're 4-0, Pat. We're 4-0.
Yeah, we nearly kicked on from last week in the first quarter, but then we stopped playing with about 5 minutes to go in that quarter, and then we stopped playing with about 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, and then we stopped playing altogether.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's fine. We got the job done. But it's, kind of on the opposite side of a honourable loss. This was a boneheaded victory. So, and I'm totally on board for it, because I think...
Yeah.
Who cares? I think a lot of people will be annoyed about the performance, and, the old 4-quarter adage will come out again, as it should. But, on the whole, you'd rather win when you're playing garbage rather than lose when you're playing garbage. So I don't think the team is really set up to be at their peak right at this point in the season. So we've got that to hopefully look forward to.
I sure hope so. Having said that, if we played like we did on the weekend against 15 other teams, it probably wouldn't yield the same result for us. So hopefully that is the last we see of any sort of red time disgustingness and just no effort in the fourth quarter. Fages in the presser seemed to think that it was a build-up of 3 or 4 weeks of intense weather and limited preparation time, all that sort of stuff finally caught up with us, and we just looked lethargic. I thought at times we looked really lazy, and really there were moments, especially in the sort of second quarter, where we had a bit of arrogance about us, lazy and arrogant. There was a few too many times we tried to do a little bit of Hollywood stuff, whereas, and we were just saying this off air, and I said this to Chris from the Big Footy Tigers Fancast, if I was a Richmond supporter, I would be super happy and super proud of the effort they put in. Full effort and full application for 4 quarters. Played every minute of the game, basically. And, obviously experience on our term got us over the line and we got the win. But if you're a Richmond fan, you'd be walking away from that going, yeah, signs are there. Armstrong looked good. Lawler looked good. Sonzi, Seth Campbell, a number of their young kids got involved. So... yeah, for them, great signs.
I like Blight, not just because of his name, but I like the fact that I've sort of ghosted in on watching Richmond play a couple times, and he's been all over the place. Big fella.
Banks was good as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to like about them for their fans, I guess. But I think probably the thing, and we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but just to kind of get it out of the way, so that it doesn't, why would we want to really talk about Richmond more than we need to? But I liked the way that even though the state of the game for them at different times, they were getting pumped, but they were still treating every kind of victory that they had, or every goal that they scored, or every contest that they won, like it was kind of within the context of where they are. It kind of reminded me of, do you remember when Brownie was on, it was doing, is it open mic?
Yeah.
one-on-one with Mike Sheehan.
Yeah.
Where he was like playing down at like Warrnambool and got like clipped over the ears as about a 16-year-old and was turned around and was like, "You wait until I get older," and everyone laughed at him. It was a bit like that of like, okay, we all understand that we're in the middle of something here, but let's just celebrate the small bits as they come along. And I think if that's something that it's something that Uze can do as well, as someone who's a coach who's just started, to sort of say, hey, look, guys, we're kind of in this together. Let's all celebrate these things as they come up. And Chris Fagan was like that in 17 and 18 as well. So we've seen it and we've lived through it. And there would have been times in 17 and 18 that we were probably pretty hard to play against, other times where we weren't, and that's just what's going to be the case for Richmond. But it was, they were happy with the things they were doing, and they were almost trying to show application for the future rather than just kind of clinging on to what they could at this point in time. So very impressive. But whatever.
One thing...
Onto our blokes.
Onto our blokes. But before we do, I want to say, basically, for Fox, elite commentary lineup. Dunstall, Buckley, and Anthony Hudson. Give me that every week, please.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, come on. That's about as good as it gets, really.
I mean, I'm going to be forever known as the person that hates all commentators, so... I mean, Hutto doesn't do it for me.
Oh, so. Really? I don't know. Hey, I thought that was... That is as good as it gets. I really enjoy Bucks and Dunstall. Like, they've got fantastic insights into the game. And Hutto is just one of the best play-by-play callers. So, big fan of that lineup for the weekend. All right,
I like Hutto and Jared when they're together.
That's the dream team.
Yeah.
All right, couple of changes. Fort went out. Oscar came back into the lineup. Will McLaughlin came in for Kai Lohman, as we sort of forecast, but he was the sub. And Bruce started in the 22, which I guess was a little bit surprising. And then as the game wore on, Sarah Jones says, "Oh no, Logan Morris has been subbed off." And 10 seconds later, he takes a mark and shot on goal, which is very funny at the time. But obviously, he got subbed off in the last quarter. McLaughlin didn't really get a chance at it. I thought he should have got that free kick in the last quarter. I thought that contest was pretty good, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, those were the changes.
McCluggage sharked one off him as well. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, that might have been the one you were talking about, but... For my money, whatever was going on there, McLaughlin should have had a shot at goal, but, is what it is. To me, that decision kind of told me that McLaughlin's not really in the club's mid to long-term future, whereas Brucey probably is. So, the inclination to play Levi Ashcroft a little bit further forward and then just try to kind of balance it around. Whereas, I mean, I personally, for now, would have had Bruce as a sub because I talked about it at length last week.
Yeah.
And, I mean... He kind of cropped up in the third quarter a few times, but on the whole, it's almost like he has the same amount of impact throughout an entire game as he does as a sub, which, is that a fitness thing? Is it a game sense thing? I don't know.
It could be a bit of both. I mean, the impact was immediate last week with 2 kicks that were just absolutely perfect that resulted in 2 goals. So he had his moments on the weekend, but it wasn't nearly as, I guess, impressive perhaps, but he certainly, he had his moments. Everyone had their moments, but a lot of people had some moments I'm sure they'd wish they would take back. Where do you want to start with this? Because I kind of want to talk about our back six, because that could be collectively probably their worst game they've played. Especially our captain Harris Andrews, who you pumped up all sorts last week, went on to have potentially one of the worst games of his career.
Yeah, at least it didn't cost us.
No.
Maybe he's that good. His brain is so big that he is more than aware that he can have his worst game of his career and it not negatively impact the team.
I suppose, yeah.
Is that just next level thinking by the big H, the chief himself? You tell me, because he was dreadful. He was awful.
There was just and credit to Richmond, but they managed to find space inside 50 at will, especially in red time. There was just and maybe it came from sort of lack of pressure up the field, but the defensive accountability was just, it didn't seem to be priority number one, that's for sure.
there were a lot of moments where we were kind of, our midfielders were definitely cheating out the front of the stoppage.
Oh, yeah.
We were getting, like, you can understand the why, but, to me, if I was looking back at the tape of that game, I'd be showing nothing of the positives and just be showing a whole bunch of examples of, like, don't do this, please don't stand there, don't handball it to him here. You've got a guy here, don't do that. That's what my review would be. Of just like, the front half, the game, it basically felt like a weird fever dream on the whole. Even to watch it just felt like it was happening. It was on rails. It was going to be a win. And no one really gave a shit except for Richmond, who still couldn't win.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty fair summation of things.
The like story of the game is just we kicked goals, then we let them get them back in red time every quarter, and then they just were better than us in the fourth quarter, where they kicked 4 goals, which is kind of interesting because we kicked 4 or more goals in 3 of the other quarters. So it's sort of their heaviest scoring quarter was not as good as ours in the other ones, and nor it should be, because our ball movement at times in the first half was really good, but just give them a bit of a clip over the ears and tell them to pull their heads in.
It was sort of like we did what we needed to do as quickly as we could. It's like, let's get and then it's like, all right, cue in the rack. I'm done with this. We've done it now. And that's when the laziness, the arrogance sort of crept in a little bit. And we were always going to beat them in the midfield because, like, their CBA is basically just Taranto and Hopper. Is like,
and Camden McIntosh, who I thought was a winger like forever, and now he's like gone in there. He's done some pretty good jobs over the course of the season, but I mean, Hopper I forget to notice a lot of the time, and Taranto is obviously funny because he just like the whole him and Corns thing is hilarious.
And look, they're good players, but they're not A grade. They're not elite midfielders. You're not putting them anywhere near the same bracket as, Paddy Cripps, Marcus Bontempelli, Petrarca, any of those. And then you come up again. And our midfield had a field day. Like, McCluggage, Dunkley.
Those two don't get neither of them get into our midfield.
No.
At all. Like, you wouldn't have them. So you don't even need to put them up against the best.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, our midfield is very good, but it's not as touted as those 3. But Neil, Dunkley, Ashcroft, McCluggage. Yeah. They don't get in at all. It's just not going to happen. So... but yeah, like on the whole, it's hard to quantify this game, Brooksy.
It is, yeah.
As I said, the team was sleepwalking through it. My watching of it was probably a bit sleepwalking through it because you're just like, oh yeah, cool, it's a goal. Oh shit, they've kicked a couple goals. But there was some.
It's just annoying. It just had that touch of annoyance about it.
A little bit. I mean, there was certain elements. I mean, definitely in the second half, I'm just scrolling back in the timeline of the game so I can remember what happened. They looked wide open at times in the first half, and I think probably the first half performance is more indicative of, if you take the last 2 quarters against Geelong and the first 2 against Richmond, probably pretty good 4 quarters spread across the 2. I mean, Logan Morris threatened. Ashcroft was good. Bailey was pretty good. And then they just sort of stopped playing. Your man, Fletcher.
Yeah, he had a great game.
He's been my man for last year, and now you've claimed him. You've stolen my child, the 3rd Ashcroft.
No, he was fantastic across the day as well. Yeah, he was really, really good. I thought it was, without, lighting it up, I thought it was Sam Day's best game since joining the club. I thought he found himself in some good spots across the day and set up some chains, linked up pretty well, took some good marks. Again, without, hitting the scoreboard or exactly going, oh yeah, we need to take notice of him. I thought it was his best game.
Oh, for sure. I think the conditions dictated that it had to be.
Yeah.
In the way that it was, but I think his ruck work is pretty fine, and he got up the ground a little bit, and there was a couple of goal assists. I think one over the top, the good handball to Berry, where time stood still, and I'm sure we'll talk about the 2s, but he'll need a few more games like that if he wants to hold that spot, I would say. Yeah, this one's a hard one to talk about. You got to take the lead here, buddy.
Yeah, and look, let's just get into a couple of the players. Lachie Neale obviously led all comers, 42 touches. 42 touches for 170 metres gained. What do you make of that?
He was relying a lot on the halfbacks because he was coming back through stoppage and then dishing off to Wilmot or Zorko. So, what's that, 3 metres a handball or something like that?
Give or take.
Yeah, not great.
I don't ever want to see Darcy Wilmot try and take a shot from 60 again. I know he's got a good leg.
He should be able to.
He's got a good leg, but that was a bit much.
Yeah, he didn't quite do what he does everywhere else all of the time with the Wilmot. But, you know, I think largely most of our players were serviceable, although there was a lot of lack of defensive accountability. So it kind of taints that a little bit, you know.
What'd you make of Charlie Cameron's game? 6 touches, 3 goals, 1. I mean, 6 touches for 184 metres gained, so put that into context against Lachie Neale. So he's had 36 less touches, but for 14 more metres on them. So arguably, and 3 goals, 1 as well, so arguably more impactful.
Well, the metres gained would surely be counting the shots hitting the dead ball line over the goal line, right?
I suppose so, yeah.
Unless he's kicked 2 75-metre torpedoes, your maths doesn't stand up. So I think we've got weird opposite Charlie Cameron from last year where he's sinking all of his set shots rather than missing all of them and then doing weird stuff. So, I mean, I don't mind it. It's clear there's a couple of players, him and I would, he seems a little bit underdone.
Yeah.
And there's no way in hell that Premiership player Eric Hipwood is not either carrying an injury or carrying fear of what surgery he's had in the off-season. He
barely had a pre-season. Yeah, he's...
Because osteitis pubis is a pretty weird one. Trying to look at what it is, and it's more of like a general inflammation rather than like an injury that is there or not there.
Yep.
And I think if it's something that you've had surgery on and you're worried, because he's okay in a straight line, but every time he gets knocked over, he like goes with the fall. He sort of hits the ground like a sack of shit rather than kind of trying not to fall over. So I don't know if it's something that will just click where he'll regain the confidence or something like that, but he's doing a job whilst not doing himself any favors in the eyes of most people watching.
It's tough because it's sort of at the moment it feels like maybe Logan Morris is our number 1 key forward. He's probably being targeted more than Hippie. Hippie's still moving up the ground a little bit. Sam Day's working his way up the ground, and at times Logan Morris will too. But it's just sort of, I don't know, it's what we've been saying each week, that we still really don't know the patterns and how this forward line is functioning at the moment, and it's the sort of thing that we're going to need to figure out sooner rather than later, I guess, because we're coming up against the Bulldogs next week, and they've got tall players at both ends of the ground everywhere.
Rory Lobb, the man with the hair. I didn't think that there would be a world where there'd be a part of me that respects the absolute knobbishness that he brings to football. Now, I couldn't be bothered watching the Fremantle and Bulldogs game today, so I didn't see the reception he got for his lobster haircut, but I'm all for that kind of absolute shithousery.
Yeah, fair call.
Which is not to say I don't like Rory Lobb the player, but, so that's an interesting one. But, yeah, it will be interesting to see how they do go up against, a better defence, but for the time they're able to make do, it's just a little bit hard. And I think the club probably internally knows what the structure is supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like. And we haven't really had clear sight of it. So hopefully next week in Adelaide with the giant, long, straight wall, it's another anomaly,
Yeah, that's right. I thought it was Cam Rayner's best game this year without being fantastic. he had some moments. Like, disposal-wise, he's back up in the 20s. 6 clearances, 6 tackles. That's probably what you want. A couple of fend-offs. Had a shot, missed it. I thought, it certainly wasn't a great game or maybe even a good game, but I thought it was his best game this year so far because he's had a really quiet start.
Yeah, the benefit of these kind of winning your first few games is affording these players to kind of, reach their physical, I'm not going to say peak because I said it's not quite right, but to reach a physical level where they can contribute in their own time, which is not always what you want because you want people that deserve to be there to be playing. But that's not necessarily the case with premiership sides. So it's good to see him and Zach Bailey kind of having a bit more impact. I know Bailey had some impact in the earlier game. Who was that against? West Coast, where he kicked 4 or something.
Yeah.
West Coast.
He's been pretty good this year, Bales. I thought he's good against Sydney. Had his moments. Geelong was probably his quietest game, but I thought he's been pretty good. Yeah,
but it's just affording them a little bit of time to kind of get with it, get with the program, and kind of start their season off. And to do it and be 4 and zip is pretty lucky and impressive.
Yep.
What were we saying? People were. I mean, I know we were playing West Coast and Richmond, but I don't think a lot of people had us beating Sydney and Geelong.
No, those were probably the danger ones, weren't they?
And we got away with it. So it just means we've got a little bit of wiggle room, and it's all good.
All right, let's get into votes. Thanks to Hop on Brew Tours. Book yourself a half or a full day tour online at hoponbrewtours.com.au. It was a bit of a tough one this week because, as I said, the midfield dominated, and it really goes on what you valued across the day. For me, I've gone 1 for Jazzy Fletcher, 2 for Hugh, and 3 for Will Ashcroft.
Yeah, you've got the same in a slightly the same order, I guess.
Sure.
Not the same, though. I've gone Ashcroft 1, Fletcher 2, and McCluggage 3.
Yeah.
And the McCluggage 3 is probably just a more of a based on repeat impact.
Yep.
In some of the other games. So, but what do you think of Will Ashcroft's goal?
Pretty great.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
As far as dribbly ones go along the ground, that was so intentional that you can't call it lucky. There's no luck in that at all.
No, and he assessed the option. He took 5 to 10 seconds, looked inboard, didn't see anyone, saw the goal square open, adjusted the ball positioning and just guided it through lovely.
I think that was what was the most interesting thing on the broadcast was when it happened live and his ball drop looked like he'd sort of just spun the ball randomly because you were looking at it from a front-on view and then he kicked it and it was like, oh, yeah, that's why he did that weird thing. What a genius. So it was quite good.
And then
but yeah, the other
obviously
two,
he's set up kick to Bales as well, which was very reminiscent of his 23 goal of the year that surely didn't travel 15 metres but was obviously impressive as well.
We haven't got the tape measure out on that one, but who cares? Yeah, I think Ashcroft was really good. Obviously, he's quite a good player. Yep.
2 goals, 2 great goals as well. That first one was equally as good, running full tilt through the middle of the ground and just draining it from 40-odd.
Fletcher's goal was pretty good too.
Yeah.
I don't know what that whistle was for. Still have no idea.
His finishing is amazing.
On the run, it's good.
Yeah.
You would want him in that position in a final, and we've seen it, obviously, against GWS last year. So,
well, we saw it a couple of years ago against Port in that qualifying final as well.
Yeah, and in his first game, might have been against Sydney.
Oh, yeah, where he balked Aaron Francis.
Yep.
And then he had that great goal against the D's at the G as well later on in the year.
We don't talk about that game, though.
But McCluggage, the thing probably that has really stood out to me about Hugh in his last 12 months or so is his tackling has just gone through the roof. And he hit double digits again this week. So I don't know if that's been a particular focus of his, but I mean, it is really standing out, and it's really impressive for a bloke who's not exactly a physical beast in the same way that sort of a Cam Rayner or Josh Dunkley is. Yeah.
I think Dunkley's more of a prototype of what Huey is. It's more, there are people I think that are good tacklers and people that are better at breaking the tackles, and the body shape's a little bit different, because even if you look at Dunkley and Rayner, you know, one's tailor-made for getting out of it and the other one's tailor-made for locking people in with their sinewy, like, tentacle-y arms to sort of just latch on. And I think, you know, Hugh McClugg's just got a bit more of that, because I reckon he'd be sneaky, super strong. I mean, I think all the blokes would be pretty bloody strong anyway, but yeah, his tackling, 12 tackles is ridiculous.
Silly.
That's insane.
That's video game numbers. That's really, really good.
He should just learn to take 4 more marks, and then he'd be in the exclusive
quadruple double
Dunkley club. So, but no, I'm happy that McCluggage is finding some form. Got a little bit of got paid a bit of service by Damien Barrett during the week, so, or in his sliding doors article, saying that, you know,
yeah,
slow and steady, goes at it and does it. Well, he, you know, does the job and doesn't get the kind of plaudits, but he should. We
will obviously chat a little bit more about Hugh in the questions a bit later on, because there's a couple about him. Let's have a quick chat about the twos. So they played the Richmond VFL team at the Swinburne Centre, Punt Road Oval. Got done. Never really looked likely, fairly inaccurate in front of goal. There was a pretty strong wind going to the left of screen, whatever that is, and we just couldn't seem to get a decent shot on goal anytime we were heading to the right. It's sort of like any shot we were taking was sort of from at least 45 metres plus. Struggled to find a target inside 50, but there's two main things that we want to chat about in this game. One is the dominance of Henry Smith, and this will lead to further discussion later on the show as well. 30 disposals, 3 goals for, 7 clearances, and 33 hitouts. 5 marks as well. So that is the game where you go, hey, put me in, coach. And we've said on this podcast a while, I mean, I believe he's the long-term project, and I've been pretty impressed with his form last year. He really came along. Obviously had a couple of games at AFL level and didn't really look likely. Looked pretty nervous on the big stage at times, but did a few things here and there. But that is a standout performance from him. The other one is obviously Tom Doedee, who got through the game, didn't exactly blow it up. Limited minutes, limited disposals, but got through the game.
Did you watch, or did you just kind of get in?
I watched maybe about 75% of it. So I was doing bits and pieces around the house, and I sort of had it on. I watched the first quarter and a half, then sort of drifted away for a bit, came back and watched the last quarter.
And yeah, I mean, I suppose the Henry Smith one is it's pretty wild. Like, that's exactly the kind of numbers you would want someone to have. And, you know, maybe not super consistently, but I think his the games that he played at AFL level last year are a little bit distorted, just because I think they were pretty crucial games from memory. It was like Sydney in a top of the table game, and then it might have been like the Q Clash after that, or you know, just they were a group of games that were not exactly tailor-made for a new tool to kind of come in and actually sort of function in a particularly good way. And I think that in those games he presented well whilst not offering any output, and his ruck work was generally pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, I think if I remember correctly, the first set shot he had on goal, he absolutely munged it. I think it went out on the full, and from there it seemed like he just got in his head, and any time he did take a mark, he got nervous and was like, well, I'm not going to kick it again. So he looked for the handball more often than not, and I think he just sort of got in his own way a little bit. And whether that's true or not, like, that's me just sort of with a bit of pop psychology at you know, in the moment. But it seemed like he just got a little bit overawed by it.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of take a lot of stock into that, because it's probably the sort of thing where you look at and go, well, maybe it's a year too soon.
Yep.
Puts on a little bit more size, a bit more confidence, and that sort of a thing. So, you know, I'm excited to see when he gets into the team eventually, because I think it'll be nice to have someone that doesn't look like they're walking and running through molasses like Day kind of is. And that's not a knock on him, because I mean, he was fairly serviceable. But yeah, what's he doing having 7 shots? That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. That's what you want from a key forward, a forward ruck. Like, that's exactly what you want. So there will be a couple of questions about, Sam Day and what it means for Henry Smith, and we will get to those. But with that being said, Dev Rob is just not getting any midfield minutes in the twos at the moment. So I would have thought the last year or two he would have been out of the club via trade. He's out of contract at the end of this year, and surely he's not getting a game at AFL level, and now he's not getting midfield minutes in the twos, really. He's playing a little bit off half-back, maybe a little bit at half-forward as well, but it looks like that midfield is largely centering around Reece Torrent, who's moved a little bit more in there, and Sammy Marshall's obviously, but James Tunstall is the main man in there. He's putting up some good numbers as well, so he's really making a case for AFL selection should some injuries happen or something, but it is going to be tough for him.
I think it's probably an element of what you're going to get out of Dev Rob in that kind of centre role. So you're looking at it if there is an injury to Lachie Neale or Dunkley particularly.
Yeah,
that Dev Rob would be the likely candidate to come in for that. Whereas sort of the more kind of hybrid inside-outside mids like Huey and Will Ashcroft, you'd be looking at maybe seeing a Marshall there or. Tunstall I don't know about. I just think maybe it's more they're trying to teach Marshall and Torrent that like grunt inside work, and Tunstall works more as a sort of inside midfielder, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it does, yeah.
So it could just be a balance thing, because we've seen it in the past, and we all know that I've waffled on about it in the past of having a midfield that might not have been quite as balanced due to leg speed incapabilities.
Oh, we're back here, are we?
Sorry?
Oh, we're back here, are we?
Oh, sometimes just when the legs aren't running, you get exposed.
Fair enough. All right. Any changes you're making for next week as we come up against the Dogs, who just fell short of Freo, but Sam Darcy has kicked another 5 goals. So time for Harris to put that week behind him, toot sweet, and get on with it.
Well, I don't think Harris will play on Darcy.
You don't think so?
No, it'll be Payne. It'll go to Darcy. And I think Frog will go to Norton. So I didn't see any of that game, unfortunately. But yeah, Sam Darcy's he's pretty good, isn't he?
He's a freak.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how he goes against Jack Payne. Bit of extra physical presence, because I think he is not light, but I think compared to Payne, a bit. It could be a bit like how we used to see with Tom Hawkins, kind of throwing his weight around. It could be done kind of in reverse and put a little body on him, make him earn it. But the Bulldogs have been pretty good value this year for albeit being, are they 2-2?
I think so. Yeah.
1-2.
I think they're 2-2. Some. I'm not sure. I haven't had a look about where Bontempelli's at. I think it was a 6-week maybe injury, but then there was complications. I haven't really been keeping up with it. So he may or may not be back in the fold for gather round.
It doesn't matter. Jared Berry will frost him out that game anytime. So,
That's true.
No, I think so. Changes I'd make would just be I'd probably have Will McLaughlin play and have Reville as the sub.
Yep.
And that's probably all I'd be doing. I know it's boring, but I think that it's functional, and it's just an element of trying to get the most out of the team. It would be nice to see Henry Smith come in and play. But I don't know that it's entirely necessary right at the moment.
Yep. No, I don't think so either. And as I said, as soon as he debuted, I'm prepared to give Sam Day at least 4 or 5 weeks before I really cast any judgment on his role. And I think the club is probably thinking the same thing. Give him a good stretch at it. And if Henry Smith comes out again and kicks another 3 or 4 goals and has 30 touches and marks and clearances and hit outs again, he might make it basically impossible. But for now, I think Sam Day still holds his spot.
Yeah, Henry Smith will get his opportunity one way or another in this season. In the same way that we knew Levi Ashcroft would get his opportunity in this season, and he will. Similar to Tom Doedee, if he can get through a stretch of EFL or a couple games, he'll get an opportunity to play. Like, it'll happen.
Yep.
And I don't think these things necessarily need to be rushed.
No. And we don't, especially with Doedee, we don't need to rush him because, I mean, aside from the weekend where basically everyone had a poor game in that back six, more or less, that's a tough back six to push into. Like, I mean, is he taking out Froggy's spot? Not easily. Is he taking out Jack Payne or Harris? Certainly not easily. But at the same time, it's been said we didn't recruit him to the club to play too, so he will get his go, but there's no need to rush him, especially coming off 2 years and 3 knees without any footy. So yeah,
it's mind-boggling, eh?
Mind-boggling. All right, so no more changes there. All right, let's get in.
What about you? Any changes for you? Or
no, I mean, I think Kyle Lohmann may be right, as they say, but after he's done it twice in a row, I'd be happy to give him another week off and just make sure it really is right, his ankle.
I mean, just keep him in Brisbane until the Easter game.
Yeah,
There's no like super value in just being kind of rushy with it, because I think between that we've got a Saturday and then it's a short turnaround to the Thursday night. So it's if something were to happen, you don't you then risk losing him again. So
100%. So yeah, I'm right with you there, and I'd make that same swap as well, Bruce, as the sub, and give McLaughlin a full game and see what he can do. Bit of forward craft. All right, let's get into...
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a bit disappointing because, obviously they had Will McLaughlin in his debut game and they were showing the box of the family and whatever, but play a game at the MCG, and I know probably Bruce is the same, but, he would have been able to get his family there and they got to see him run around, particularly after Logan Morris's, like, piss-headed display of staying on the far side of the field and not coming off, which it's charming in its own way, but I don't think... I mean, Fagan was having some pretty stern words with him on the bench, and I could lip read a fair few "I'm sorry, I won't do that again" type things from Logan Morris. So, that I guess is the kind of arrogant streak that we need to toe the line on, rather than it being, super flagrant. So.
All right, thanks to Crisp Communications, crispcoms.co. Abby and the team will sort you out with any sort of marketing you need for your business, and they've still got the free Brisbane Lions Fancast stickers as well. You can get those through our website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Make sure you fill in your details and get yourself a free Brisbane Lions Fancast sticker. Let's get into some listener questions. We do have an audio submission here. Not so much a question, though. Do you remember last week we were talking about the tipping and you singled out one particular person?
Yeah, Snake.
Yep.
Hi guys, in relation to S Snake, who's a Brisbane Lions fanatic but normally tips against them in tipping comps, you'll be pleased to know that us friends of S Snake, who are also Brisbane Lions fanatics, have been giving him hell all week. Tipping it won't change his behaviour though. Go Lions.
There you go. And Snake actually got in touch and just said, hey, leave Snake alone.
All right, fair enough. Well, I mean, I think I proved my point forever, but I suppose it must just be a thing where if you kind of, tip against your team, then you can never be whatever. So good to know that people are giving him a razz, so I don't mind that. Good.
All right, Mad Lion on Instagram. Do you think yesterday's performance versus Tigers was a result of several weeks of intense games and saving themselves for upcoming games? That seemed to be Fages' overall summation of things. He did seem to think that they were a bit tired after the first few weeks and the intense heat and humidity and all that sort of stuff that it came with. I don't know that we're necessarily saving ourselves for something bigger, better.
No, I don't think the saving themselves thing is necessarily right, but I think for sure, I don't think they've been particularly intense games, although they haven't seemed like... The start of the season has seemed almost like you're watching it at 0.9 speed rather than at full speed at times. It's really weird. I don't know if my brain has slowed down or sped up or something. So maybe it's me, but I just think the team kind of aren't quite as fit as they will be, which is, I mean, to me, that's comforting.
I wasn't at the Sydney game, but I have heard that it was remarkably hot. I can attest to the conditions for that West Coast game, and they were absolutely disgusting. And like would
you say that the conditions were putrid, as you like to say?
Yeah, they were. They were really, really bad. And I was sunburnt, sweating a heap, just sitting there, let alone running around in full sun with that humidity. I got home and I was tired, and I was tired the next day just from being in the sun. So I can only imagine how they would have been feeling after the fact. Thomas, has Bailey been our best player this year so far? Are we about to see the best of him?
No and yes.
No, I would say across the first 4 weeks, probably McCluggage has been our most consistent performer. Not necessarily our best, but certainly our most consistent across the 4 weeks. Bailey has been good, though.
Ashcroft's been good too.
That's true.
Bailey has been good for sure, and I think if we can see anything close to, the glimpses that we've seen in particularly 21, 22, I think, that's good. He's making better decisions. I'll say that now, and then he'll get run down, tackled across the line or some shit next week. So keep your fingers crossed for that one, everyone.
Nathan, not a question, just a bit of love for Jasper Fletcher. There's no one I'd rather have taking a shot from 40 on the run. Yeah, fair call.
That's kind of what we said, right? Yeah.
There's a couple of questions about sort of Doedee here. So, Alex, does Doedee find a spot in the seniors this week? Scott, how many weeks until Doedee comes in for, and who does he come in for? There's just a couple of people wondering sort of what the time frame is for Tommy Doedee.
What he is?
Yeah, well, it's just sort of like, well, he got through the game. Does that mean he comes straight back in? That was the plan last year. He had a game in the VFL and was like, all right, he's going to make his debut. Obviously, he did his knee again. Fages did sort of address it in the presser and said, look, he's going to need more than one game. And as we've sort of spoken about before, I think there's no need to rush him in, especially coming back from a third knee reco, and when our backline is really quite settled in terms of that, two talls and Froggy is that sort of third hybrid defender. Yeah.
Let me have a little look here, because he's not old. He's only 28, so he's got plenty of time, plenty of football ahead of him, particularly for a defender. If you look at Froggy Lester's 37 or something. He's not 37.
And I think we brought him across on a 3-year deal, I think, from memory. I could be wrong there. So I think he's at least in contract till the end of next year.
Yeah, I'm curious looking at the lineup for that Collingwood game that he was touted to play. Who otherwise wouldn't have been there? Because that back six is more or less the same back six that we are currently playing with. So I guess it must just be a bit of extra, and then the ability to kind of push Wilmot or Zorko further forward, which I don't know why that's necessarily in our MO. Although that said, Answorth wasn't playing that week, or I don't know. Yeah. Trying to find a solution to the question that I honestly don't know. But yeah, I don't think it's a matter. I don't think he'll play this week. I don't necessarily know that he'll play this half of the season.
We might see him before
goes out,
Yeah, we might see him before the bye. But no, I would say at least 2 or 3 games in the VFL, at the very least, and then make the call from there.
It could also be the case of giving like Froggy a bit of a chop out. You know, I'm not 37, but I get pretty tired like living. So
I know, but he's just so good, so serviceable, and you know, you'd imagine he, along with a few others, are the first names on the board each and every week. So yeah, look, it's a tough one, and thankfully we don't have to think about it just yet. Scott also said,
I'm just thinking about what I said about Harris last week. First name on the board, and he was horrible.
He's still first name on the board.
I know, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Scott also said, is Rayner just in second gear and waiting to explode? What do you think it's going to... what's going to take for him to shift up a gear?
Let me have a think about this. I'm trying whether to be funny or whether to be normal. I think he's probably spent most of his career in second gear, right?
Yeah.
That was neither funny nor...
Well,
I mean, that was true.
It could be applicable, yeah, for sure.
Maybe, yeah. I think he sort of just does it during games from time to time, and then, he's not really a consistent performer. A bit like Brucey. But you wouldn't want to put Rayner as a sub because his like attributes factor around the idea that he can kind of do that.
Yeah.
Crank it into ninth gear from nowhere, and it'll just happen in a little patch. So, yeah, I would tend to agree with that, but I don't know how you can kind of hold your breath for it.
We did get a question via email, and feel free to do this. You can get in contact. There's a contact form on our website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. This is from Liam. What did you think of Logan Morris getting subbed off? Felt the wrong decision for him. Morris has played 24 games of footy, probably stands to benefit from getting game time on the MCG against young opposition, compared to some of the senior players who were just going through the motions in the last quarter, not to mention Logan was playing okay.
Probably was a pre-decision.
I would say so, and the fact that Will McLaughlin is a forward, and I don't know if he's got any other versatility or experience anywhere else on the ground, so it's sort of like, well, we are going to take off a forward. Logan Morris just happened to be it. I wouldn't have... If Fages said Hippie come off, if Fages said Charlie Cameron come off, I probably wouldn't have batted an eye. It was sort of a bit of a raffle, really.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I think he probably wasn't too happy about it. And it seemed like there could have been... This game had a potential to sort of have a fair bit of disharmony among the group, potentially, but we won't necessarily know.
Yeah. Giuseppe, it's good that we've started off unbeaten. Is it something to worry about, or is it just early in the season, the reason for the fall-off at the end of quarters and not being able to play a full 4? Yeah.
The mythical 4-quarter game.
It is. I don't know. It's I guess tough to put your finger on what the go is. Like, obviously the first 3 weeks started off really slow and came in with a flurry. This week, almost the opposite. Sort of got the job done, and then, as Jared Waitley said on the means test, loafed for the end. But yeah, haven't really been able to put together not even 3 quarters of decent-ish footy, I suppose. It's usually been a half either way or bits of a quarter here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably put down we played 3 fine quarters. We just got done in red time due to laziness, which I think, I don't know. 4-quarter performances are interesting because I've heard a lot of people sort of say, like, oh, why can't we ever really batter a team? And we seem to never, like, close out games, and it's not true. We do. We just don't do it all the time, because we battered Richmond by 111 points last year, and St Kilda by 85, and Port Adelaide by 70 away. And there's plenty of examples of us playing 4 quarters. But also, remember that other teams are trying to also play 4 quarters. And sometimes when they do that, they can make you look like a dickhead. So, which I don't think was the case necessarily in the weekend. But if you're willing to say, well, Richmond, they played 4 full quarters, is that really not worth looking at the first 10 minutes of the game where they got obliterated?
Yeah.
Does that count? Yeah,
it's a tough one. It is slightly annoying that we are watching everyone else belt West Coast, and, the last 2 games before this, Richmond got done in by 80-plus points. It is a little bit annoying that we can't do that.
Well, maybe this is just that whole thing about being the hunted, being the premiership team. You're a free hit, because West Coast are doing some zany stuff that I've not seen them do in any other games, and Richmond were deadly efficient in front of goal.
Yeah.
Their efficiency was like up near sort of, for scores, I think it was like 63% or something, which is ridiculous. It's an insane amount to get 25 scoring shots from 40 entries. So
yeah.
They just played well.
They did.
And
They really
I
did.
think we're probably having to deal with the fact that West Coast also played really well. But we didn't lose, so fine.
All right, here's a couple of questions I'm going to group together here. Emma, Henry had another excellent run in the twos. Is it time he got a game? Mr. I, if Sam Day only offers a chop-out for Oscar, would it just be better to have Fort instead? And Andrew, the Sam Day experiment, do we continue or is it time to see something different? So I've grouped all those together. There's 3 players sort of in the mix there, Henry Smith, Sam Day, and Darcy Fort. Where do you want to start with this one? Because I think I'm still, at the moment, it's Sam Day's spot for now, for another couple of weeks, unless Henry Smith does another 2 or 3 weeks where he goes those silly numbers again, and then it's like, okay, you have to bring this guy in. But I do believe that the club sort of is not relying on Sam Day, but they're giving him the first shot and the best shot to make that spot his.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I think he was brought in to be that transition between the two, because I think they probably weren't sure how fast Smith would hit the ground running with his shoulder in the off season. I certainly remember saying in either the Adelaide or the weird like triad game that we played, I didn't expect to see Henry Smith in whichever one he played in. Can't remember which one.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it was
right.
the
Yeah.
Adelaide one. I didn't expect to see him there at all, and there he was in like the fourth quarter. So
Yeah, he only got maybe 10 minutes, but it looked a good 10 minutes to be sure.
well, you don't put someone out there in full contact pre-season game unless they're able to take full contact.
Yeah.
They're not wearing the old no contact bib. So he probably came back a bit sooner than expected, which would probably lead me to believe that he might come into the team earlier. I mean, Fort, you know what you're going to get. And I just think it's probably a project-based thing where they're just willing to wait and see and then make adjustments. And, you know, if it was a situation where we were zip and 4 and couldn't take a mark inside 50 and couldn't score at all, they might be throwing some more paint at the wall. But at this point in time, they don't need to.
Yeah.
So I still honestly believe we haven't really had a proper... There's been mitigating circumstances in all of them. It's like, well, the game got cancelled because it was raining, and then it was too hot, and then it was... all the injuries happened, and then this happened, and now it's like we played a game where we didn't really care that much. So we haven't had a game where we've cared. We've had the personnel, the Goldilocks game against... and now we're playing at a field that doesn't make sense next week. So, you know, maybe it'll take until Easter Thursday before we actually find out what this forward line is supposed to look like. So,
Yeah, you're right. One
will
more.
the porridge be too hot or too cold?
One more from Rebecca here. Hugh seems to have really taken his game to the next level. Do you think he can finally get that elusive All-Australian? If he keeps this up, yeah, definitely. But
Yeah, hold on. Who won out of Jason Kilda beat Port Adelaide? He'll get his jersey taken by Jack McRae again, or something insane like that'll happen.
no, don't say those words.
Can you imagine that?
I don't want to. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yes, I can, but I don't want to.
St Kilda, Port Adelaide, they're trouble. I didn't see that. Sorry. Yeah, I would very much like Hugh McCluggage to get the recognition he deserved for being a actual winger.
Yeah. Well,
Before
I mean,
it was cool.
Yeah, the thing is, he's not spending a massive amount of time on the wing. It's still a bit.
No. What I'm saying is that he did it as a winger
Yeah.
and wasn't given the recognition, and now he's doing it as kind of like this weird hybrid mid-forward tackle machine. And they'll be like, nah, we'll put Liberatore in there. And you're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, he's pretty good, but... Oh, we're playing against the Bulldogs, aren't we? I got to stop talking.
All right. Let's quickly touch on tipping. How did you go?
I got burned by my North Melbourne fingers again.
You got everything else right, though? You got 7 out of 8?
I didn't get Port Adelaide. Like,
Yeah, that was the only one I dropped.
Yeah.
That I was really looking forward to that Adelaide Gold Coast game, and it delivered.
Poor Adelaide.
I know.
Oh man, as a team getting stooged so much, it's like, yeah, tipping. I'm not good at it. Not good at it, and I've made my own mess here by, forcing us to do this to make myself look like an idiot. But at least this time I didn't do any I'll change my tips at the last minute and tip Carlton or something stupid.
Yeah.
So, all in all, a better round, and hopefully I can not tip North Melbourne next week. So what are I got to do my tips now, don't I?
All right, so your first game on the Thursday night, Adelaide and Geelong at Adelaide Oval.
That's hard. That's so hard to begin with.
There's a couple of tough ones this weekend.
Oh god, round 5 is it?
Yes.
Round 5. We're gonna go Adelaide by. Can you do a tip where it's if Adelaide lose but should have won, and you get a bonus point?
Yeah. Rorted by the umps again.
Yeah, watching that game, because we're just sorry to go back to this whole Henry Smith thing. Let's say it doesn't work out, and then you look at the players that. Oh, we can talk about this afterwards. Whatever. Let's do the tipping now. Collingwood or Sydney?
It's a tough one. There's a couple of tough ones this weekend.
Gold Coast. Oh man, Carlton or West Coast?
Surely this is the week.
Oh man, Harley Reid to kick 17 goals. Don't know. Carlton, Lions.
Melbourne Essendon is a tough one.
I think I've basically tipped Melbourne most weeks and it's not worked at all. I don't know why. It is nice to see Melbourne be awful, but do I really want to tip a team with Ben Mackay in it? Essendon.
Ooh.
Fremantle. Killer at Norwood against GWS. Hogan kicked 9 goals today.
That is silly.
Alright, GWS it is. And Hawthorn, because everyone will tip them, so I want to break even. I'm doing strat tipping now.
Nice.
I'm gonna go math ball.
Money ball, likes.
Which is kind of funny because I think out of all of these ones I've tipped 2 home teams, even though it's also good to see that the Bulldogs are technically the home team in this gather round fixture against the Lions. So sucked in Bulldogs.
Sure.
Good with that. Yeah, so I was going to say, who are some of the really good second forwards at clubs? Because we had Oscar Allen obviously be a little bit of a silly boy, meeting with Sam Mitchell.
Well, it's weird because he met with us last year, obviously, and no one's batted an eye.
Yeah, no one cared. I do think it's a little bit rich from Chris Scott to be like, you all need to grow up, and basically side-eye say that West Coast need to grow up when he's probably the biggest... what's the reverse of a victim? Criminal?
Yeah.
No.
Suspect.
Whatever. The guy that does the thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Assailant.
It's just assailant. Criminal. The one that does that shit the most is Chris Scott.
Yeah.
So he's trying to slide it in there to be like, don't be babies about this. Let us talk to the local farms and people and get them to come round. So, but yeah, who would be on your list of people that we could get who are second string? Because I was like, we should get that Thrillthorpe guy, and then he's leading the Coleman, except probably not now because it's Jesse Hogan. And it's like, well, shit, we can't do that, can we? And Tex will walk off into the Texan sunset and leave those two killing it in the forward line. So,
yeah, look,
Mitch Lewis.
Yeah, that Mitch Lewis we spoke about on the show maybe last week before. No one there at St Kilda. Geelong, not so much. You bloody pumped up Joel Amati in week 1.
He had a pretty good game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, over in Freo they got Tracy and What's that other fella's name? Jai Miss?
Tabiner?
No, Tabiner's gone. Long gone.
Oh, yeah. Jai Miss is the guy that looks like both Rick and Morty from Rick and Morty together.
Yes.
Somehow. What about, like, Ollie Lord from Port Adelaide?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he can't get a game at Port Adelaide at the moment, then there's something not quite right there. Like, I know he played pretty well in that qualifying final against us a few years ago, but he's barely had a game since. And I know there was another club sniffing around him last year or the year before, and it sort of just really didn't go anywhere.
Why? Because I just think it'll be the case of you're not going to pick up, other than Oscar Allen, you're not going to be picking up a marquee forward. I don't think that's a wise thing for us to do. I mean, Ollie Lord kicked 3 goals today against Saints. Him and Georgiades is...
Yeah.
And Georgiades is good. There's a lot of good goals.
Yeah.
What about Charman from St Kilda?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's just sort of like if we... for me to be Oscar Allen, Mitch Lewis as a gamble, anything other than that, I'd probably rather just sink the time into Henry Smith and look to the draft and develop Ty Gallup as well.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. He's cool.
He did not have a good game yesterday. Two touches for 0 goals won. So he'll need to keep working on that.
Yeah, good point.
Other than that, you look in the lower levels. You look at state league footy for who's kicking bags of goals.
I don't know anyone.
Yeah, neither do I. So maybe there's someone that
My knowledge of state footy doesn't really go past like seeing the odd Werribee couple of people in the sauna at the gym.
Yeah.
Be like, how you going? They're like, good. It's like, cool. Dalhouse, nice to see you. Don't even know what his first name is. J. Dalhouse.
All right, let's have a quick talk about this game coming against the Bulldogs at Norwood. Gather round. Can't seem to get a game on Adelaide Oval during a gather round, but that's fine, whatever.
They just don't really want the Premiers to do anything, do they?
No, I guess not.
Who else is playing at Adelaide Oval, actually? So you got Adelaide and Cats.
Yep.
Collingwood Swans. I guess fair enough.
Carlton West
Coast. I mean, Carlton West Coast is a weird one. I feel like us and Bulldogs would pull as much crowd as Carlton West Coast.
I would have thought so. And then Melbourne, Essendon. And Port and Hawthorn to finish things off.
Like, virtually all these games are going to sell out anyway, right? Because everyone just goes there and it's just like this big cult party, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Put us on an Adelaide Oval.
No, maybe next year.
They're not going to... Yeah. No, probably not. They'll do it in like 10 years' time when it's not even in Adelaide. Somehow we'll get a game in Adelaide Oval, even though it'll be in like Darwin. Just to spite us. Us against the Darwin Komodo Dragons.
Nice.
In Adelaide. So we're playing against the Bulldogs. Hey, they've looked pretty plucky given their injury woes. Matt Kennedy looks like a player reborn.
Yeah, I like Matt Kennedy.
They've got a scary full forward. And they've got a lobster for a full back.
So still missing from that lineup, Garcia, who I quite like. Bontempelli's still 3 to 5 weeks away, it's saying here, and this was updated last week. Cody Waitman's still out. Adam Treloar is still out as well. Anthony Scott, who plays a fair amount of AFL, is a test after a knee. And a fellow called Luke Cleary, who I'm not overly familiar with as well. So I don't know that there's going to be a huge amount of changes for those guys unless any injuries came out of the game today. Haven't seen. People listening right now may know a little bit more. But it looks like they're still without some of their big players. So could take advantage of that. I think this will be a good test for us.
I think we should win. And I think hopefully it's the sort of game that will hold our attention a bit longer than the 2 of them that we've played. Now, they're there to be beaten. I don't think I had the Bulldogs making the 8 this year, but they got weapons. A bit like what I was saying last week, that there's plenty of teams that they can get you on a bad day or a good day for them.
Yeah.
where is it going to be won? I think we'll probably smash them in the midfield. Tim English will probably have a really good game, given that he sort of doesn't most of the time. So he'll probably be good.
He had that really good sort of half a year, and then just hasn't really looked like it since then.
He just looks uncomfortable. Like he looks like an IG-88 robot from Star Wars.
Sure.
I remember that being like the most terrifying boss in a Nintendo 64 game when I was a kid. So scary. But that's what he looks like and what a lot of ruckmen look like. So, he'll probably have a good game. Their defense might show up. There's a good chance that, Day and Hipwood don't take a contested mark. And then it's up to our smalls. So I guess there's an element of... I think the game will probably be won by our midfield and smalls. And hopefully the back six can do a better job.
They can't do a worse job. They can't do a worse job.
I would love to agree with you, but I'm not willing to say anything anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. It's gonna be a tough one. Sam Darcy is obviously the main concern, who is just kicking goals for fun at the moment. He is a freak, and a lot of people are saying he's going to be the best player in the competition in the next 5 years, the first $2 million player, all that sort of stuff. And it's probably not that much hyperbole when you look at it, because he is a freak.
Yeah, he's got got a long arm. He's kind of like Mason Cox, but actually a footballer.
Yeah, okay, fair call.
Because he's about the same size, right? Like he's
probably a little bit taller.
Or something insane.
He's probably a little bit taller than Mason.
Really?
Yeah, he's gigantic, man.
Is he like Sanderland's?
All right, so he's 2.08.
Okay.
Which is the same height as Tim English, actually. Mason Cox... Actually, no, Mason Cox is taller, 2.11, so there you go. My mistake.
I feel like Darcy can jump higher, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got that athleticism.
If I'm just going to make a vague, bold statement, I think he could jump higher.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand with that assessment. The Mason Cox that could play football.
Sure. It's not bad, actually.
He doesn't have as much charisma yet, but his dad is also Luke Darcy, so that's kind of... You're not learning much from him in terms of charisma, so...
No, you're not. All right, let's...
the wheel!
Let's finish things off with the wheel. All right, now last week I had Zach Bailey, you had Justin Leppage. You walked that in. It was a non-contest. Well done. So this week...
I did argue a bit that Justin Leppage did almost self-destruct our team.
Yeah, but I think he still had enough credits in the bank to beat Zach Bailey in that one. So if you're new to this, I've got on the wheel every player that has played 50-plus games for the Brisbane Lions. We spin it. We each get a player. We have to make the case as to why that player is better than the other. So last week, it spun up. I got Zach Bailey, and I had the choice to pass or hold. This time, I'm going to spin it, and you're going to get the choice to pass or hold. So you got Pierce Hanley, who's been spun up, who's not a bad get, if I'm honest. Do you want to...
You know, it's really annoying. Look where that arrow is on that thing.
Yep.
It's so close to Kadeen Coleman.
Yep. Would you rather have had Kadeen Coleman than Pierce Hanley?
Yes, I would.
Really? Okay. Do you want to hold or pass on Pierce?
I feel like I would be stupid for passing on Pierce Hanley, but I just think he's a bit of a nothing footballer. So I'm going to pass.
You're going to pass? All right, so
I'm going to pass on Pierce.
I've got Pierce Hanley, and you will...
This is going to absolutely...
You got Shaney Stiller.
I can't even go and say that it's the one that my mum liked because I got told that was entirely wrong. So,
look,
can I just fall on my sword?
Hey, did he get the 100 in the end, Shaney Stiller? Did he retire on 100, or did he get stranded on 99?
I'm having vivid, but not super vivid. I can't even write his name into Google because I don't know how to work an iPad, and I'm panicking. I don't know.
I think he
You
might
go
have
first
just
to
got the
talk
100.
about your Irish.
He retired on
person.
100. He got 3 games in 2012 to retire on the 100.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope that he has some sort of prodigious child.
Look, Piers Hanley, in those years where we were really quite poor, was one of the shining lights, along with, I guess, Rockcliffe, and Dane Beams and Zorko. It was Piers Hanley was by far one of our best players, great user of the ball, one of the great Irish stories. I remember that game. He always used to fire against the Suns, and there was that one game against the Suns where I think he hit the fabled 1,000 metres gained across the day. There was another couple of games against North Melbourne. Kicked some miraculous goals across his career as well. It's a shame he did eventually go across to the Gold Coast, and we never really saw much after that. He didn't play a huge amount of games for the Gold Coast, I don't think, because he was fairly injured, but a really good cult figure for the Lions for a lot of years.
Very well done. You kind of didn't really say much that I wouldn't have said. So basically I realised that I'm totally screwed.
I remember it was maybe 14, 15. He was just really, really good, like in all Australian calculations. I don't know if he made the squad, maybe, in one or two of those years, but that was his best footy for sure.
I would say that he's not my favourite Irishman that played for the club.
Okay. Who would be your favourite Irishman that played with the club?
Probably Dara Joyce.
Okay.
That was supposed to be funnier, but you didn't laugh, Brooksy. I was supposed to try to catch you off guard.
I thought you were going to hit me with
definitely,
a Colm Begley there.
No, it would be Madden would be my favourite. Oh, no.
What are you doing? You'll do anything not to talk about Shaney Stiller is what's happening right now, isn't it?
I already did him as a player, like a nostalgic player. So I feel like I've done my duty. Go back and listen to episode 33, where it's on there, and you'll hear about how I said that my mum had a crush on Shaney Stiller and loved him, and then found out the week later that I was talking about the wrong person. So
I know he went back and did he go back and play for the Aspley Hornets? I think he captained the Aspley Hornets in the NEFL after leaving us, I think.
Well, he played a full season in 2007 when we were not great. He played a full season in 2009 when we made a qualifying final, so probably his best year, some might say. And then didn't do a great deal else.
Yeah. He
So
got the
that's all I
100.
have to say about
Played
Shaney
100
Stiller.
AFL games. That's good.
Where did he play on the field?
I think he's sort of like a wing half forward type, maybe.
Yeah,
I honestly couldn't tell you.
screw me, eh? Whatever. Take your gold and get out of here.
We'll throw it open to the people.
It's
BL Fancast, our socials.
I think this one could be as shut a case as the Ryan Lester and whatever
Anthony
the other
Corrie
guy was. Yeah. So, cool.
Have your say on our socials. Get in touch. Shoot us an email. Go to the website. There's a contact form there. Rate, review, subscribe. Do all that stuff. Watch us on YouTube and get the word of the show out there. And order yourself a free Brisbane Lions Fancast sticker at our website as well.
Miraculously, I've had unanimously positive feedback about the wheel. And I think it's just people that I know reveling in my discomfort.
It's good.
Yeah, well, makes me blush. Which you can only see if you watch the video. So,
all right, and we
end the show, Brooksy. We're done.
Yeah, we'll see you after Gather Round next week.